What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, guys. Welcome back to Omar Talks Football. Xabi Alonso, ladies and gentlemen, was sacked by Real Madrid on Monday. This obviously coming right after the Supercopa de España defeat versus FC Barcelona on Sunday. And yeah, there was definitely, many people expected a reaction. Many people expected a reaction from the media, from the fans, but no one really expected a reaction from the club. The club decided in the end to part ways with Xabi Alonso, and to say this was a bombshell would be a huge understatement. No one, not even Madrid fans, really expected this to happen, and obviously so many different news have kind of come out. Firstly, it was kind of stated that apparently Alonso decided to resign, leave the job. It was a mutual, understanding, and basically they decided to go their separate ways. And then there was some other news that kind of came out later on that he was sacked in the end by the club. And there was so many different things that's kind of come out into why was it the Super Cup? What was the reason behind his sacking? Was it the Super Cup defeat itself that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back in the end? There was a lot of that because, let's be honest, Real Madrid have not exactly had an amazing season. I mean, if you look at his record, it looks pretty good, Alonso at Real Madrid, but the football has not been great. Ever since the Clasico win, they really dropped off from form, right? Letting Barcelona get back into the title race and eventually going top and being 5 points clear. And losing his job against Barcelona was kind of the thing that was kind of the narrative coming out. But recently, guys, in the past few hours, there has been so many different stuff that has kind of come out that has kind of blown the thing out of the water, right? Because there has been, like I mentioned, the talk of him resigning, which is the first news that kind of came out when this whole thing came out, right? Fabrizio Romano, that's what he came out with, right? That Alonso decided to leave, that he thought that that was the best decision for himself and for the club, right? Basically, he didn't see the club or the players or the team basically accepting his style and philosophy. Now, this is the big one that kind of came out because for many people who kind of, had a bird eye view of what happened after the Supercopa de España, you guys will remember there was a moment when, after the coronation of Barcelona winning the Super Cup, there was this incident where Kylian Mbappe was basically refusing to do the guard of honor for Barcelona, right? After this trophy celebration, you could see Alonso was actually telling the players to stick around and wait, right? And kind of, give a standing ovation out of respect. But, Mbappe obviously went against it. He kind of, told the players, the other players to come with him. And a lot of them, decided to go with him. And that was kind of the big talk that kind of came out of that whole situation after he got sacked. Many people said he lost the dressing room didn't respect him, and that was the issue. And I will be getting into that because that is actually something that is very important in this dialogue. Because apparently, when Alonso left, he left with a parting message to the club. Apparently, this is what he said. He came out and said, Xabi Alonso came out and said, you can't give these players too much power. It's impossible for a coach to rule in a dressing room if the club always are taking the players' side. Now, this is the biggest one that's kind of come out of this whole situation, right? The fact that, he came out and actually said this. This is apparently what he said. Now, there is no actual quote or interview where he did come out and say this. So it's come out, you can take this with a pinch of salt. But the fact that he's kind of come out and say this, for a lot of I would say Madrid fans and also just football fans who've kind of been keeping their eye on Real Madrid, this doesn't really sound out of the ordinary. If you kind of, go back all the way around the beginning of the season when, his relationship with Vini wasn't really that great. We saw Vini sometimes have this animated, reaction, especially when he was being substituted by Alonso, right? And there was a lot of big talk about that. You remember, guys, in the El Clasico when he got substituted and he was throwing a tantrum talking about he's not going to play under this manager anymore, that he's going to leave. And they made a big deal out of that, but eventually it kind of died down. But you could tell, you know, the little cracks in Real Madrid where you feel like the players, you know, they kind of got too used to the way Ancelotti was doing things, and the way Alonso was kind of just, you know, ruling with an iron fist was something they were not reacting to. And that was the big thing that kind of came out, right, out of this whole situation with Alonso sacking. Many people put it on the fact that he couldn't control the players. That was the issue. He couldn't control the players and he decided to resign. Now, that is the part that many people have been talking about. The fact that, you know, he resigned because he couldn't control the players. But, like I mentioned, this goes deeper because that wasn't the whole situation. Now, the big talk was that, you know, he didn't actually resign. And it was basically confirmed, right, later on, right, after this news came out, that he actually wanted to stay. And it was the club that actually fired him, and it wasn't a mutual decision, right? And this was according to Cope. These are the people that actually came out and said that this is what happened. So when this kind of came out that, you know, he was actually sacked and that he did wanted to stay, this kind of just threw a whole curveball, because now the question was, what was the reason behind it? Was it because of the loss against Barcelona, or was it because of something else? And there was a lot of things that kind of came out of this, like I mentioned, right? Apparently it was bigger than that. Alonso, basically, the club, they kind of had an issue, right? Now, this is the big one that kind of came out. This is the big one that came out, right? Apparently, after the Super Cup defeat, the club, specifically Perez and the board and the people that run the club, they wanted to make changes in the coaching staff, which is, as you can see right here, guys. Apparently, Real Madrid tried to change Alonso's coaching staff by including Piños. Now, if you guys don't know who Antonio Piños is, this guy has actually been working in the club. You know, he's worked in the club in the past. He specifically worked during the Zidane time, right? He actually worked under Zinedine Zidane. This is the guy who I'm talking about. He's a fitness coach, right? He's actually someone that is known around the club. The players actually know him very, very well. I think he might have worked under, worked with Ancelotti too. So he's someone that, you know, has kind of had a relationship with the team, with the club, and basically he's kind of loved in there. And the big word that kind of came out was that apparently Alonso wasn't with it. Alonso did not want to change his coaching staff, and he didn't want Antonio Piños, right? And that is basically what this article basically comes out with. That Real Madrid tried to change, Alonso's coaching staff and include Piños. Now, Alonso told them no, that his coaching staff is a red line, and he absolutely won't change it. And that was the reason why he got sacked. Now, I'm gonna say this now, right? I don't know what you guys think in the comment section below. Tell me what your opinion is. But if this is the case, then this is a big problem. Because this just stinks of Madrid in the early 2000s. Right? Just trying to get their grubby fingers on everything. Like, if many of you guys, and for those Madrid fans who are watching, like the older Madrid fans, OG Madrid fans, I'm sure a lot of you guys remember in the 2000s when Del Bosque was around, Luxemburger, Kerosh, and all of these guys, when they were in charge. Yeah, they might have been the managers, but really they were not the ones making the decisions, right? Whether it was transfers, whether it was players who were starting, who were being benched, who were getting opportunities, all of these stuff, right? It was done not just by the manager, but also by the club. When guys like R9, Zidane, Figo, Beckham, all these guys were there. When they were not playing, they could always go to Florentino Perez, and Perez would always come and talk to the manager. Now, this situation right here is, it really bites into that whole situation, if you guys know what I mean. It really does. Because here's the thing. When it comes to Alonso, Alonso is the manager. Alonso needs to be able to have decisions in the club. He should not be being told who he should have in his coaching staff or not. At the end of the day, I do respect Alonso for that. The fact that he stood his ground, because at the end of the day, look, he has to have a level of control with the people of the people that he's working with. If this Antonio Pina's guy, no matter how much people love him at the club, if he's hired by the club, at the end of the day, that's not hired by the manager. So if, let's say, him and Alonso don't get along, what happens then? Alonso can fire him. He can decide, well, you can't fire me. The club were the ones who hired me, right? And that could create a tension amongst, the coaching staff. And I kind of understand that in the case, right? I do understand where basically Alonso is coming from. And I'm going to be very real, right? Even though I'm a Barca fan, just from a non-biased point of view, this is the biggest problem at Real Madrid. The fact that managers are not allowed to do their job, whether it's selecting players or basically anything else, right? Everything else, right? When it comes down to it, it always feels like when it comes to Real Madrid, the manager is just the guy in the dugout. And it kind of stinks because when you look at, like I mentioned, the way guys like Vini, Mbappe, the way these guys act, I think they realize that even though Alonso is the manager, he's not the one in charge. So that's why they feel so comfortable doing what they're doing. And that is the big problem with Real Madrid. And this is the reason why, like I mentioned even yesterday when I was doing my streams, right? This is the biggest problem with Real Madrid. This is going to be Madrid's biggest downfall. Because they love to get their grubby hands on everything. They don't just let managers just manage and control everything. Whether it's player selection, getting the players that they want, getting the players that they need, all of this stuff. Even signings. That is the problem. Everything is controlled by the club. And they hire these managers and they just expect, okay, this manager to just work with it. Now, Ancelotti was able to do that, but not every manager is able to do that. Some managers need to have a level of freedom to get to do what they want, right? And this is the thing, like I mentioned, this is the biggest problem. Madrid wanted to impose certain changes, like this is the change I was talking about, right? That he didn't want to accept. For example, he tried to force him to get Pinos as the coach, forcing him. Why? Why would you do that? It's not good enough. And look, let me be clear here, right? Do I think Alonso's sacking is unfair? Maybe a little bit. I think a little bit because, look, they're only 5 points behind Barcelona, if we're going to keep it 100. They're only 5 points behind. They're not that far away. So, to sack this guy now, right, when he's so close. I mean, okay, he lost the Supercopa de España. It's unfortunate. But really, are there any good managers around? And, they gave the job to Alberto Arbeloa, who, if you guys don't know, he actually managed, by the way, the Castilla team, right? He was managing the Madrid B team, the Castilla team, right? And, many people said that, he was doing a good job over there. And, he was kind of doing his thing. And I think, the first game he's going to be managing is the Copa del Rey against Albacete, which ironically was the team that actually knocked out his Castilla team, right? And it's gonna be very, very interesting. There's been a lot of talk of like his style of play. Many people say he plays a similar gegenpressing style of football. It remains to be seen, but yeah, this is it, guys. So let me know what you guys think about this whole situation with Real Madrid. Do you think that Alonso was right to stand his ground, right, on the club and basically the management of trying to basically impose their will in hiring and firing people in his coaching staff? Or do you think the club made the right decision in sacking the manager and basically getting rid of him? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Make sure you guys smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications as usual. And yeah, man, y'all know what to do, guys. Peace. Take care.